So, character descriptions. They seem pretty easy, right? You just say they have blonde hair, blue eyes, done and did. What more can you do? Because one of the most important things about a character is their first impression, whether it be the main character, the villain, the side character, all of those things. Like the first impression and description of a character is the crucial moment where the reader decides whether or not they like this character or not, and whether or not they're gonna care what happens to them or not. The best character descriptions in books are the ones that paint a vivid image of what they look like both physically, but then also who they are on a personal and deeper level. What is this person like? Let you know, should I like this person? Should I dislike this person? Should I be terrified with this person or intrigued by this person? Character description is a chance for the character to come alive and grab the reader's attention. Sadly, more often than not, character descriptions are pretty bland and generic and very repetitive. Like, I've seen this before. So yeah, in this video, I'm gonna be diving in depth about character description and why they go wrong most of the times, and then simple and easy things you can do in your writing to immediately have a very intriguing and interesting character description that captures the essence of who your character is. I want you to be able to write marvelous character descriptions and tell you everything you need to know about your character in as few words as possible. No more bland, cliche character descriptions. No more descriptions that make readers forget everything you painstakingly describe to them. So now we move on to the 5 key components to making a great character description that'll make your characters stand out and come alive. Okay, number 1 is find the key component to your character's personality. In character descriptions, we want to focus more on the key characteristics that describe the character's personality more than their actual physical appearance. For example, take the infamous first line of The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, where C.S. Lewis describes the protagonist like so. The boy called Eustace Clarence Scrubb, and he almost deserved it. C.S. Lewis begins his description of Eustace with his name, because his name is pretty much all you need to know about this character's personality. Eustace Clarence Scrubb is a terrible name, and he pretty much almost deserves it because of how terrible his personality is. Similarly, in The Hunger Games, one of Katniss's main features that are described, besides her signature braid, is her hunting jacket that used to be her father's. This not only establishes that she's a hunter, but also that she has a deep connection with her father and looks up to him and wants to be like him someday. It not only shows what Katniss looks like on the outside, but also shows a more deep and personal view of her life. So we remember this jacket way more because it's not just any old jacket, it's her father's old jacket, who she looks up to and loves. So take a look at your characters. What is one characteristic that pretty much sums up their personality? This could be their hair, eyes, clothes, an accessory like glasses, the length of their neck, or a certain facial expression. So if some inexperienced writer wrote a character description of a not so very nice person, it would probably look something like this. Carmelita Spatz had dark curly hair and dark eyes that told you that she wasn't up to any good. She was wearing a school uniform and had her arms crossed with a permanent frown on her face. However, a more professional writer, say like Lemmy Snicket, would approach it more like this. If you're going to give a gold medal to the least delightful person on earth, you would have given that medal to a person named Carmelita Spatz. And if you didn't give it to her, Carmelita Spatz was the sort of person who would snatch it from your hands anyway. Carmelita Spatz was rude, she was violent, she was filthy. And it really was a shame that I must describe her to you, because there are enough ghastly and distressing things in the story without even mentioning such an unpleasant person. In that example, Lemmy Snicket didn't even describe her appearance at all. Instead, he focused on her personality and how she's the kind of person that'd go around stealing medals from people. Even without any physical description, you're still able to form an image of your head of what she looks like. The reason why this happens so naturally to us is because we've all met unpleasant people in our lives, whether that's in real life or like in a movie, and using our own experience, we can start to develop an image of what she looks like in our head by just a prompt of her personality. What's more, he uses exaggeration to solidify what she looks like in our heads. Is your character a creepy maniac that might very well be a serial killer? Then link your description on his unsettling smile that sends chills down your spine. Is your character a night owl who stays up all night working on science experiments? Then linger on describing the dark circles under his eyes or how his oddly colored hair is sticking up in odd angles. Is your character a mischievous prankster who has a bad habit of taking things way too far? Then focus your description on his lime green eyes that peer at you like you're merely a prop to his latest and greatest prank he's cooking up in his head. Describe just enough so we get a good idea of who this character is, and then let the reader's imagination take over and fill in the details. What is one characteristic of your character that pretty much sums up your character's personality, background, and character? What is something strange or unusual about the character that describes another aspect to them? What is one thing about this character that sets them apart from everybody else? Number 2, focus on posture, movement, body language, and facial expressions. Does your character slouch? Are they stiff and tense? Do they walk slowly or quickly? Are they laid back or tense and stiff? Does he use a lot of gestures when he speaks, or is he more quiet and reserved, and he shows this by like crossing his arms and trying to make himself look smaller when there's other people around? All these things say so much more about the character than their physical appearance. It makes them come alive and take up more space in the reader's imagination. For example, take the description in Mysterious Bending Society. Just then the door flew wide open, and a girl raced into the room carrying a bucket. She's extremely quick. One moment she is bursting through the door, golden blonde hair flying behind her like a horse's mane, and the next she is standing right beside them. Sticky leaped back in alarm. "What's the matter?" he cried. "What's the matter with you?" the girl replied back calmly. "Well, what were you running from?" "From? I wasn't running from anything. I was running to this room." Sticky was breathing hard and casting glances at the door, as if a lion might fly in next. So all fell to ready to introduce them. "I'm Rennie Muldoon, and this is Sticky Washington," he said, shaking her hand and immediately regretting it. Her grip was so strong, it was like getting his fingers caught in a drawer. This description focused on Kate's speed, strength, and the way she moves and talks. It makes it feel like she comes alive on the page. You don't only get a good idea of what she looks like, but you also get a good idea of her personality and how she moves and takes action. So ask yourself, what kind of posture does your character have? How does your character move? What does their body language say about them? What are some of their common facial expressions? How do other characters react to this movement? How they feel about it? Number 3, show them in action. At the risk of sounding cliche, I'm still going to use this phrase that sums up this point pretty well, which is actions speak louder than words. And this applies to writing as well. What your character is doing when they're first introduced in your story makes a much bigger impact than what they look like when they're first introduced. In Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen intentionally wrote Mr. Darcy's introduction to make him come off as standoffish, rude, and flat out mean. Through his actions and dialogue, we get a distinct impression of who he is. Thus, he is not so fondly remembered for that introduction and description. We get a better idea of who Mr. Darcy is right off the bat from his actions rather than what he looks like. And it's an accurate first impression. Like, imagine if Jane Austen introduced Mr. Darcy like petting a cat or saving a kid from drowning. Then we get the totally wrong impression of him. We would think he was like some decent person instead of the jerk he is. It's much easier to remember the essence of the character and build off an image of what they look like from their actions than trying to remember some laundry list of physical descriptions of them. You can't stuff every single detail that you have in your imagination about your character into the reader's imagination. What you can do is actually describe who this character is as a person that will remind the reader of somebody either they know or somebody they know in a movie, and they can build an image of what they look like from that. It could be a friend, a cousin, a nosy neighbor, or a cool character in a movie they watched recently. If the character in your story gives them the same feelings as that other character or person gave them, then they can easily imagine what they look like. For a more concrete example, take this excerpt from The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Drummer was this middle-aged guy in a motorized wheelchair. He had thinning hair, scruffy beard, and a frayed tweed jacket, which always smelled like coffee. You wouldn't think he'd be cool, but he told stories and jokes and let us play games in class. He also had this awesome collection of Roman armor and weapons, so he was the only teacher whose class didn't put me to sleep. A small part of this description is about physical appearance, but the point of view character also talked about how cool he is and how he likes to tell stories and jokes and play games, and has a collection of Roman armor and is the only interesting teacher in the entire school. We learn about things he commonly does, and we get so much information about his character, which makes it for a great introduction. Is your character an annoying, spoiled jerk? Then introduce him like goofing off and complaining about how bored he is. Is your character a selfish, corrupt lawyer who always uses illegal ways to win court cases? Then have her first introduction be her trying to get evidence in illegal ways, like using bribery, blackmail, and other shifty measures. So ask yourself, what is your character's personality and main characteristics? How can you show these characteristics through their actions? What are some other activities or things that this character does that can illustrate what kind of person they are? Number 4, throw out breadcrumbs. Establish mystery or intrigue. For example, in Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, old Miss Havisham, I think that's how you pronounce her name, excuse me if I'm wrong, is wearing an old wedding dress when Pip first meets her. It makes Pip and you as a reader ask the question, why is she wearing that wedding dress? What's the story or even tragedy behind it? In The Hunger Games, one of the most interesting things about the character Peeta Mellark was the mystery surrounding him. Through Katniss's thoughts and monologue, she was constantly questioning whether he was an ally or an enemy. She would analyze everything he said and did, and this made you as a reader also question everything he did and his motives. However, when the books were adapted into movies, we lose all that mystery, curiosity, suspicion, and intrigue, which is among many of the reasons why the Peeta Mellark in the movie became incredibly boring, which is quite sad because in the book he was actually a really interesting character, but now he's known as a very bland character. Another great character introduction that sets a ton of mystery and intrigue is the first installment of All the Wrong Questions series by Lemony Snicket. Who could that be at this hour? Hello, she said. I'm Ellington Faint. And I sat up to get a better look at her. It was not so dark that I couldn't see her strange, carved eyebrows, each one coiled over like a question mark. Green eyes she had, and hair so black it made the night look pale. She had long fingers with nails just as black, and they poked out of a black shirt with long, smooth sleeves. And right before she started climbing down the ladder, I saw her smile, shadowy in the moonlight. It was a smile that could have meant anything. Now that is one of my favorite introductions to my favorite character of one of my favorite series. Not only do you get a good idea of who she is, but also so much mystery. You can't help but get excited to learn more about this character. What mystery or hint of dread can you add to your character description? What questions come to the point of view character's mind when they see this character? What hints can you give that shows that there's more to this character than meets the eye? Now we move on to the very last key component, which is number 5, leave a memorable impression. You describe this character and their personality. Now the final key is the interpretation. One character can smile and it can look amiable to one character and menacing to another character. It all depends on interpretation. Consider your POV character. What kind of impressions do these characters leave on them? Or if you're describing your POV character, what sort of impression does he seem to leave on the people around him? And most importantly, what kind of impression do you want to leave with the reader? If you take the time to describe how characters to react to each other, then it helps the reader decide what they think of the character. Do you want this certain character to feel like a threat? Then have your POV character feel uneasy or even afraid of that character. Do you want this character to seem like a good, friendly kind of guy? Then have your POV character feel comfortable and have a jolly time with this character. In the line of which in the wardrobe, when Aslan is introduced, C.S. Lewis could have just had us imagine a lion and left it at that. Problem is, that's kind of boring, so this is what C.S. Lewis did instead. At the name of Aslan, each one of the children felt something jump inside. Edmund felt a sensation of mysterious horror. Peter felt suddenly brave and adventurous. Susan felt as if some delicious smell or delightful strain of music had floated by her. and Lucy got the feeling you have when you wake up in the morning and realize that's the beginning of the holidays or the beginning of summer. Through this description, we learn 4 different aspects to Aslan. He's not just a lion, he's a multidimensional person who impacts people in different ways. What's more, we learn more about the Pevensey children by how they react to the name of Aslan. So when describing a character, don't just stop at physical appearance. Go deeper and describe the kind of impression they leave on the POV character. How does the POV character feel about this character? What does a POV character think about how this character is introduced? What are the POV character's likes and dislikes? And how does this affect the way the character views the character that's being introduced? What are the POV character's beliefs, worldview, and so on? And how does this affect the way the POV describes the character being introduced? What does this say about the POV character? Okay, I'm going to show you one more character introduction, and in this character introduction, I want you to try to find the 5 different key components that I just mentioned. 1, find the key to your character's personality and highlight that in your introduction. 2, focus on body posture, movement, body language, and facial expressions. 3, show them in action. 4, throughout breadcrumbs, establish mystery and intrigue. And 5, leave a memorable impression. So try to find that in this character introduction of The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. Leo looked like a Latino Santa's elf with curly black hair, pointy ears, a cheerful, babyish face, and a mischievous smile that told you right away that this guy should not be trusted around matches or sharp objects. His long, nimble fingers wouldn't stop moving, drumming on the seat, sweeping his hair behind his ears, filling with buttons of his army fatigue jackets. Either this kid was naturally hyper or he's hopped up on enough sugar and caffeine to give a heart attack to a water buffalo. What an introduction. It's no wonder that Leo is my favorite character that Rick Riordan has ever made. So before I wrap up, I'm going to give you some quick tips on how you can practice on making better character descriptions. So you can take this information and actually use it to improve your writing. Pay attention to how characters are introduced in movies. Get some of your favorite scenes from movies and try describing them on a piece of paper. And try not to rely on physical details. Rather, try focusing on their actions, movement, personality, intrigue, and impression they leave on the POV character. Starting off with film, it was a lot easier because you have a vivid picture in your head already, and also it's not your own writing because the characters are already made, the scenes are already set up. This is a great stepping stone to going from describing movie scenes and then to your own writing. It's a great way to practice. I highly recommend trying it out. The second tip is read stories with great character introductions, and then take all of your favorite ones and make a collection out of them. And then study and observe how these authors deliver and carry out these character introductions. In what way do they deliver information that is deeper than just physical appearance? So with those 2 exercises and a whole lot of practice, your character introductions will stand out in no time. Alright, we finally made it to the end of this video, but in summary, most character introductions are very bland and give us very little information on who this character actually is. But by finding the key components to a character's personality, focusing on their body language, showing them in action, setting up little mystery and intrigue moments, and also leaving a memorable impression on your readers, then character introduction can be so much more than a character coming to a scene. It can show insight in who this character is on a much deeper level and make your entire story so much more interesting. When you first start off, don't worry about getting all 5 down. It's a lot of stuff. So next time you introduce a character, just try out 1 and then see how that works out and get good at that, and then maybe try adding another and then another. And it's not about getting everything right. It's about making meaningful steps to where you want to be. So I love character introductions, so I'd love to know some of your personal favorite character introductions, whether that be a book or a movie or whatever. If you have any favorites, let me know in the comments below. This is a quick reminder that Keen Pen does have a Patreon, so if you want to help shape the future of Keen Pen through surveys and personal quests and get personal writing advice on your own stories, then the link to our Patreon is in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. Take heart, be courageous, and keep on writing. See ya.